Is anyone surprised? No, not really. Hey y'all, it's Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today. And for this video, we are going to be doing a check-in on my mid-year reading stats. All right, before you get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments, how are you doing on your reading goal for the year? Honestly, I'd say I'm not doing too bad right now. I'm filming this on July 1st, and as of right now, I have read 91 books towards my goal of 150. I'll have timestamps down below in the video so you can jump forward if you are interested to diving into a little bit more of my stats. But before I get into them, I did want to check in on some of my reading goals for the year, specifically looking at like ongoing annual TBRs. For example, starting at the top with my 10 books to get read for 2025 list. As you can see, as of right now, I have read 3 books off of this 10 book list. If I am being honest, What's Eating Gilbert Grape might get kicked off because apparently this book is not available in an audiobook format. I literally can't find it anywhere. And I just don't know if this sort of a story is going to hold my attention for me to actually read it with my eyeballs for 320-ish pages. I am also very hopeful to get to All the Hidden Paths at some point here soon. I'm starting to wonder if maybe I need to have like a ongoing big book that I constantly return to. But at the same time, I am also kind of actively doing that with Dracula, so I'm not sure if that thought will actually come to fruition or not. Mary is one that I am definitely going to be prioritizing in October. I've been utilizing Becca and the book's Spookopoly board every single October to kind of mood read, but Mary is going to be a book that I absolutely will get read. I promise myself. And then the final 3 are all books that were picked for me by my best friends. So I do also really want to try and pick those up at some point. I might make it into like a reading vlog or something. That way I can like crank through them really quickly. I just don't know when that's going to happen. Then next up, looking at Wicked Reading's Horror Bingo. This started in October of last year, and so I have until October of this year to try and complete it. And I'm actually doing rather well on it. It's just I'm not as far along as I would like to be at this point. I mean, there's only 3 months until October. I wanted to try and black out the board, but as of right now, I just don't know if that's actually going to happen. I think part of it is that a lot of the earlier prompts I've completed were ones that I could very easily find. Like I wasn't trying to pick them up. I just happened to read a book that worked for it. Whereas now I've kind of completed all those. So for prompts I still have left over, starting at the top, the end times are near. Hard mode is to read one that has an epilogue. Initially, I was eyeing American Rapture by C.J. Lead for this, but that does not have an epilogue. And I honestly don't know if there is a different dystopian apocalyptic world book that I will read with an epilogue, because those sorts of stories just don't really interest me all that much in general. But C.J. Lead, an author I really enjoy, I'm willing to pick one up for her. Here's hoping that for honoring the classics, hard mode to read a book published before 1950, I will actually get And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie read for Summerween. If so, then that will be completed. And then for Reaper Read, hard mode where Death himself is personified, I actually don't know. I honestly have no idea where I'm going with this one. So if you have any recommendations, please leave those in the comments. I'm nearly to a bingo on the middle line, but I do still have the last one of a cryptid. Hard mode being that you didn't know the lore beforehand. Again, I am hoping to read Empire of Wild by Sherry Dimmeline for Summerween, which does have a Rougarou, and that is a cryptid that I don't actually know much about. It would work perfectly, so long as I get it read. On to the next line, Satanic Panic, hard mode, a occult item is actually utilized. I've been eyeing and really hoping to read The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. I don't know if that'll happen. We'll find out together. The first on the last line is honestly the one I've had the hardest time with, which is a book that is out of your comfort zone, but hard mode from a repeat author. Actually, now that I say this out loud, technically speaking, American Rapture could fall into that, because apocalyptic books are definitely outside my comfort zone. I don't really enjoy them, and that would be a repeat author for me. I don't think I can double up, however. And then the last one, Creepy Crawlies, hard mode is that they're actually on the cover. I've been eyeing Shiver by Junji Ito for this one. It is a graphic novel. It should be a very easy read. Have I read it? No. Another one that hopefully here soon I will just pick up and officially crank out. Maybe this is something else I need to do. Maybe I also need to make like this into a little reading vlog. That also might be a fun idea. And then final one I did want to cover with you guys is my Reddit fantasy bingo board for 2025. This one only started in April, so I actually am pretty far along for this only having been available for 3 months. Not doing too bad here. Although I did make a TBR pretty quickly, we have deviated away from that. Is anyone surprised? No, not really. Because I do have so many of these still incomplete, I will go ahead and point y'all in the direction of my TBR video where I walked through the books I was planning for each of these prompts in the cards up above, but I will go ahead and talk through the ones I've already completed with you guys. So starting in the top left corner, the first one was Knights and Paladins. Hard mode was that the knight or paladin has an oath to fulfill. This one I knew I was going to go for some form of a Star Wars novel because Jedi, Knights. For this one, I ended up going with Tears of the Nameless by George Mann. This was the second to last young adult novel in the High Republic series. I actually read that one as a part of Galactathon recently, so I'll put a link to that reading vlog in the cards up above. Next up was to read a hidden gem. This meant that the book had less than 1,000 ratings on Goodreads, and I ended up going with The Folklore of Forever by Sarah Hogel. The first book in this series was very much whimsical, magical realism. This second one was straight up fantasy. There was no denying it. So it was one that I wasn't anticipating to utilize, but ended up fulfilling the prompt perfectly. Kind of the same thing with the final one in this row, Down with the System. Initially, I believe I was planning to read Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. And actually, yes, now that I'm in the middle of it, I realized that would have been a perfect book for this. Hard mode being that they're not taking down a government system, which for Shorefall, they're kind of just taking down everything. But instead, I realized Power Unbound by Freya Marsh would work for this because they end up taking down a magic system. It does also have a government system tied in with it, but really the magical system itself that they know and utilize is what gets taken down. So it worked out perfectly. Next up was one I was actually already in the middle of reading whenever I filmed my TBR, and that was A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. In order to complete Impossible Places, the Isle in this series is kind of an impossible place because the folk will play games with people, so they can either compress or stretch how a human perceives distance. That worked. Next one was A Book in Parts. Hard mode was supposed to be 4 or more parts in the book. I think initially I was looking at Obsidio. Yeah, that did not fulfill that. But the Stardust Girl by Yumi Kitase did, and I also just read that one for my Galactathon Readathon vlog. I'm actually currently in the middle of Trials of the Jedi by Charles Soule for last in the series. Hard mode is the series is 4 or more books long. This is I think technically 6 if you're just focusing on the adult Star Wars novels in this little section. If you look at the young adults and everything else, it's a lot more than 6. I had already completed the parents prompt whenever I first filmed my TBR with Brotherhood by Mike Chen, so that one's still the same, obviously. For author of color, I did change this one out for Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker because I didn't realize that this was actually going to have a fantastical element to the story. I thought it was going to be purely contemporary, but there is in fact an actual ghost in the plot. So that ended up working here. While the prompt was author of color, the hard mode was to be a horror book. On the next line for biopunk, and my original plan for this one was what tripped me up because of that stupid no repeat author rule. That one has gotten me both years so far. But I actually ended up realizing that Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton would work for it, seeing as how they utilize biomaterials for pretty much everything in this little society they've created on this sci-fi, what's the word I want? Colony, there we go. So that one definitely ended up working. Hard mode was no electricity was used, seeing as how it was sci-fi. I don't think this would fall into the hard mode. Then for LGBT plus protagonist, I ended up reading Spellbound. Hard mode for this one was that the main character was also marginalized in some other capacity. And Sun, one of the 2 main characters, is non-binary, Asian, and then of course there is a queer romance between the 2 characters. Final one I've completed so far is the last prompt for pirates. Hard mode was they're not seafaring pirates, and I don't know why I was having such a difficult time figuring something out for this whenever I was making my TBR, not realizing that the Nihil from the High Republic section of Star Wars universe I'm reading right now are literally space pirates. I don't know why that didn't occur to me. But I ended up utilizing Tempest Breaker by Cavan Scott because the main character, Lorna D, initially, she's very much a space pirate. At this point, I would still kind of say she's a space pirate, but a little bit more good leaning. And then she actively is fighting against the Nihil in this one. That worked out perfectly. All in all, I'm doing pretty hot on these reading goals so far, but the 10 books, I really need to double down on that one and get going. Okay, now back to my reading stats and my reading spreadsheet. So as I said, as of filming this, I have read 91 of the 150 books I am shooting for. Those 91 books have broken down into 25,119 pages, which is phenomenal. I have listened to roughly 389 hours of audiobooks. That's only at 1 time speed, and I never listen that slow. Even if I'm listening with Josh, we're at like 1.4. If I am by myself, it is 1.8 to 2.25, somewhere in that range. I unfortunately have DNF'd 9 books so far this year, which is not terrible, but also this number is lower than I believe it was last year. I've averaged about 15 books each month so far this year, which is great. That's actually higher than last year, where I was at about 12, though we do still have half the year to go, so we'll see if that number goes down. One of my big goals this year was to read with my eyeballs more, to return to reading physically and on ebook if possible. And so far, I would say I'm doing okay with that. 37 of the books I've read so far this year, I've read in audio format only. 15 have been in ebook format, which is actually pretty good. I feel like this is higher than it has been in a while. I'm usually not really an ebook reader, but I think I'm getting a little bit better. I've read 23 books physically, and then I have read 15 in some sort of a mixed format. That means either physical and audio or physical and ebook. Actually, there's even been a few that I've read physical, audio, and ebook. Another one of my big goals was to really read the books I own, which I wouldn't say I'm doing great, but I wouldn't say I'm doing terrible. I have borrowed 1 book from a friend. I have read 2 books from my book of the month. That does obviously add into my owned, but like I do have a separate statistic for it. I bought 5 books only to turn right around and read them. I read 4 books that were gifts. I have checked out 52 books from the library in some capacity. I love my library, what can I say? Support your local libraries, kids. I have owned 26 books, which if we include all of the others that I just said, that would actually total up to 37. I read 1 book utilizing Everand and then actually ended up canceling my subscription. And then I have read 5 books, which I received from the publisher. One stat that I'm really not surprised to see a difference in is that I'm reading a lot more of adult work rather than YA. I really pulled away from YA in recent years. I feel like even more so lately. 60 of the books I read fall into the adult category. 20 books fall into new adult, which I usually rate this one myself because new adult is still kind of a newer age range. One of my favorite ones to always look at is my genre breakdown. I love seeing how diverse this is, but it's also been really interesting to see how the genres have changed now that I'm figuring out more and more the kind of books I enjoy reading. So I've actually read 3 romantasy this year. That's surprising. I used to always say I had no interest in it. I read 1 contemporary, 7 fantasy, which actually is shockingly low. Fantasy has always been one of my highest ones, but this year actually pretty on the lower side. 4 graphic novels / comics, 1 historical, 13 horror, 1 mystery, 5 nonfiction, which isn't too bad. I really neglected nonfiction last year and was another one I really wanted to work on this year. We're 7 months in and I have at least read 5. I'm currently in the middle of a 6. We're making progress. I've read 16 romances. That surprises absolutely no one. 18 sci-fi, which also isn't super shocking because I read at the very least 2 a month with my Star Wars canon project, 2 thrillers, and then 19 manga. I really have been doubling down more so on manga this year. Anytime I start into a series, I've been trying to stay on top of it, and I just actually have been looking into more manga to see what interests me out there. For my rating breakdown, this is another one I really like to see. As I said, I have DNF'd 9 books. Thankfully, I haven't had any 1 or 1.5 star, though I have had 1 2-star. I've had 2 2.5 stars, 10 3 stars, as well as 10 3.5 stars, 37 4 stars, 17 4.5 stars, and then 12 5 stars. So thankfully, a lot of what I am reading so far this year, I am really enjoying. Another stat I really enjoy seeing, especially because it's nearing the 50-50 breakdown that I want it to be, is the race of the authors I'm reading from. Of course, because I am reading more manga and majority of the authors do tend to be Asian, that is increasing this number, but even still, I do feel like I'm doing a better job of diversifying my reading lately. So I've read from 6 authors who are Black, 23 authors who are Asian, 2 authors who are Indigenous, 4 authors that are Latin, 5 authors that are mixed, 48 authors that are white, and then 2 authors whose race is not known. I've also been actually tracking the books that I'm buying this year, which is new for me. I've never done that before. These are only books I buy utilizing my money. If it's a gift, it doesn't count. If I buy it with Pango bucks, guess what? It doesn't count. So with that in mind, so far this year, I have spent about $180 on the books I have purchased, and I have only read about 21% of the books I have purchased. I need to work on that. So even though I did want to try and focus more on reading the books I own, I obviously am still utilizing my library, and I do also like tracking the books that I'm checking out from my library and seeing how much money I am saving by using it. And as of right now, I have saved $802 by using my library. Absolutely love that. Great stat to keep track of. And then finally, just a quick check at my series stats. So far this year, I have finished out 9 series, and I have decided not to continue on with 4 others. Those numbers also make me pretty happy. All right, and on that note, that is officially it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me the computer emoji in the comments. I have links to all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me down in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope that you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!